Hey everyone! Today's story is about a young man named Ali who learns how to think and grow rich, not just in money, but in purpose, self-belief, and impact. It's not a fairy tale or someone else's success story from decades ago. Now, let the story begin. Ali stood at the edge of the bustling city street, morning light casting a warm glow on the busy faces moving past him. Everything felt possible and yet so distant. He carried a small backpack slung over his shoulder, inside of which lay a thin notebook full of scribbled ideas and half-written plans. He had just graduated from college and had returned to his family home because he could not afford rent in the city. The weight of student loans pressed on his mind like a heavy stone, and he knew he had to find a way to break free from that burden. More than that, he wanted to build something of his own. He wanted to think and grow rich, not just in money, but in purpose, confidence, and freedom. Every morning, Ali watched the city wake up. He saw office workers hurrying to catch trams, shopkeepers unlocking their doors, and delivery drivers moving boxes up stairwells. He wondered, what did success look like for each of these people? Did they wake up excited, or were they simply going through a routine? Ali felt determined to be someone who woke up with excitement. But how? In his notebook, he once wrote a phrase that seemed to guide him. Richness begins in the mind. He had read those simple words late one night, scrolling through an online article about people who achieved extraordinary success by changing their way of thinking. The words felt powerful, but also vague. He needed to understand them more clearly. He decided to treat his struggle like an experiment. In the early days, he gave himself 2 tasks every morning. First, he would write in his notebook 3 things he hoped to achieve that day. They could be small: send an email to a potential client, research one business idea, learn a new skill online. Next, he would spend 10 minutes imagining life as if he had already succeeded. He closed his eyes and pictured a small apartment he could call his own, a laptop on his desk where he worked on his own project, messages coming in that said, "Congratulations on your launch." He tried to feel the excitement, the relief, the pride in his heart. At first, the exercise felt silly. He would open his eyes and think, "Who am I kidding?" But each day, something curious happened. He found himself a little more hopeful. He carried that hope in his body, a small spark warm in his chest. Weeks passed like this. Ali's mornings became a ritual. Write outcomes, imagine success, then step into the busy world to make that success real. He scrolled through job postings online, but he felt too restless to send resumes. He did not want to work someone else's plan. He wanted to build his own. He had studied computer science at university, and he had learned some coding skills, though he was nowhere near expert. Still, he believed that if he thought deeply about a common problem, he could find a solution that people would pay for. He remembered struggling with translation apps when his family back home in the countryside tried to read a medical pamphlet in English. He imagined a simple mobile program that could read a few paragraphs and deliver a clear translation in local language, designed especially for older people with low reading skills. He wondered, could he build a prototype? He told his parents he needed their support. They were quiet people, skeptical in a kind way. His father had worked in a state office for 20 years, earning a modest salary that barely stretched to cover basic needs. His mother cooked meals for neighbors for extra income. When Ali told them about his idea, his mother smiled gently and said, "We believe in you, Beta, but be careful. You have loans." His father nodded, stroked his beard, and said, "A great idea must serve many. Make sure yours serves enough to pay your bills." Ali felt a knot in his stomach. He was grateful for their cautious blessing, but he knew that if he spent too much time daydreaming, the bills would pile up. He needed money soon, or he risked losing his family's trust and his own confidence. Still, he refused to go back to submitting one resume after another. He believed that richer thinking meant refusing to settle. He thought, If I spend my days sending resumes, I will be trapped in someone else's game. If I think first about how to create value in the world, I will find doors I never saw before. Every evening, he walked to the corner cafe, ordered a simple cup of tea, and opened his laptop. He searched free tutorials on the internet. How to build a basic translation app, how to structure an interface for people who could not read well, how to use voice input. He watched video after video, took notes in his notebook, even sketched rough drawings of buttons and text fields. He did not have a mentor, but he had determination. When he felt stuck, he would recall his morning exercise, standing in the imagination of success, feeling what it would be like when a customer thanked him for helping their grandmother read a medicine label properly. A month later, he had a crude prototype. It was nothing fancy. A blank screen with a button that allowed a voice recording, a small algorithm that did a rough translation into the target language, and a simple voice playback. He had no money to rent a server, so he used a free tier online to process voice files. The app was slow and clumsy. Often it mispronounced words. But he decided it was enough to test. He walked to a small health clinic near his home, where people came to gather free medicine for chronic illnesses. He knocked on the door and explained his idea to the nurse in a nervous voice. She hesitated, but eventually nodded when she saw the empathy in his eyes. "Bring it over next week," she said. Ali felt his heart race. He left with a promise and returned to his parents' house, feeling equal parts excitement and fear. For days, he worked longer hours than before. His hands hurt from typing and pointing out mistakes. Late at night, he drank tea and pored over free online dictionaries to improve the translation accuracy. He asked friends to test it and listened to harsh feedback. "It is too slow," one friend said. "The pronunciation is off," another complained. Ali felt his spirit droop. He could have given up. He remembered how it felt to imagine success in those early mornings. He closed his eyes and conjured the feeling of walking out of that clinic next week, holding a small device, and hearing a grandmother's shaky voice say, "Thank you for helping me understand." That feeling, he realized, was stronger than his fear. He woke up the next morning, determined to fix one more bug. When he arrived at the clinic with his second prototype, the nurse and a small group of elderly patients waited. Their faces were lined with concern and hope. He introduced the app. He pressed the button. A patient spoke into the microphone in her local language. "This medicine is to be taken twice a day." The app translated into English. A woman named Nurse Farah listened, looked at him, and nodded. Then she pressed the button. The English text came out in the local language, muffled but correct. The grandmother held the phone to her ear and listened. Tears filled her eyes and she whispered, "I understand now." In that moment, Ali felt his chest tighten. He stepped back and watched. The grandmother repeated, "I understand." Then she thanked him. Others crowded around to try it. It was far from perfect, but it worked enough to change confusion into relief. That day, Ali felt different. He realized that thinking rich was not just dreaming. It was imagining and then acting. He understood, but the wealth of the mind came when his ideas moved out of his head and touched real people's lives. In his notebook, he wrote a new note: "Purpose fuels persistence." He felt a surge of pride. He stayed late at the clinic, answering questions, fixing glitches, printing simple instructions on paper. When he left, the sun had dipped low in the sky, painting the buildings in red. He walked home, feeling that every step mattered. Over the following weeks, Ali balanced two lives. By day, he visited small clinics, community centers, and local shops, showing his app to anyone who would listen. He charged a nominal fee, just enough to cover the cost of his server and to prove that people valued the service. He faced rejection. Some clinic managers shook their heads, warning him that people with low income would not pay. But others agreed to try if he offered a free pilot. In the evenings, he took an online course on user interface design and practiced coding for hours. He slept late, worked early. His parents worried about his health. His mother reminded him to eat. His father offered to help translate the instructions into other local dialects. Ali saw support shining in their eyes now. They believed in his mission. 6 months later, he had refined the app into a product that worked on basic smartphones. He partnered with 3 small clinics in different neighborhoods. He found a generous freelancer who painted a simple logo. He added a feature, the ability to save common phrases so that patients could review instructions at home. He learned to listen deeply to feedback. One nurse told him that if the text on the screen was clearer, bigger letters, warmer colors, older people would trust it more. So he changed the design. Another patient said the voice felt too robotic. Ali scoured the web for free voice packs that sounded more natural. He began to see that richness was in the details, caring enough to notice small frustrations and then solving them. By now, his small income from the app had grown enough to pay his student loans. He felt a rush of relief and shame at the same time. He did not want to feel shame. He had given this everything, but he had promised his parents to find stable work. Now he had found a path that was both stable and meaningful. He took the money due to him from 1 month's service and rented a small room in the city. It was modest, a single bed, a small desk, a window facing the gray buildings of the neighborhood. But it was his own space. He put up a poster, the words dream, build, serve, in bold, simple letters. He bought a second-hand desk lamp. For the first time in his life, he felt he was building something of value, and it was growing with each line of code and each conversation with a user. Yet money did not flow like a river. He faced new challenges. The city grew more competitive. A few other young developers began offering similar translation services. Investors said, "It is not scalable unless you offer more languages." Some clinics canceled their subscription when they had a new supplier. Ali felt anxious. His small apartment seemed darker at night. He returned to his ritual, writing 3 daily outcomes and imagining success. He realized he needed to think even richer. He spent a weekend visiting a tech meetup in a nearby district, introduced himself to a young woman who had built a health tracking app, asked her how she managed server costs. He felt his heart race when he told her his story. She did not laugh. Instead, she invited him to present at a small gathering next week. He almost said no. He lacked confidence. But then he remembered the grandmother's tearful gratitude. He agreed. That next week, standing under bright fluorescent lights, Ali spoke for 15 minutes to a small audience of budding entrepreneurs. His voice shook at first. He saw faces that looked bored, some that looked curious. He took a deep breath and told them about the grandmother who could now read her medicine instructions. He described how he nearly gave up when his app mispronounced words, how he sat up late studying free tutorials, how he felt shame borrowing money for rent. He spoke simply, sharing his fears and his small victories. When he finished, a line of people came forward asking questions. One investor wrote his email on a napkin saying he liked the genuine compassion behind the app. A clinic manager said he might pilot it in 5 more locations. Ali felt his chest tighten, not with fear now, but with hope. He realized that sharing his journey openly had brought new doors. Others connected him to a group of volunteers willing to help translate into new dialects. He felt richer than before, not because his bank account exploded overnight, but because he saw how thinking and acting with purpose created real connections. Years passed. Ali's app spread to several cities. He added a feature that let local volunteers record native voices for different dialects, so the translations felt familiar and comforting. He hired two friends who loved coding as much as he did. Together, they watched threads of messages from grateful patients and nurses. They read stories of people who avoided dangerous misunderstandings. They worked late nights, but they felt alive. Ali moved into a slightly larger apartment. He no longer slept on a simple mattress on the floor. He bought a small bed frame. Yet he kept the same poster: Dream, Build, Serve. It reminded him of where he had begun. Some nights, he sat on his balcony and looked over the city lights. He thought back to the day he stood at the city street edge with his thin notebook full of scribbles. He remembered the fear, the hunger for more, the drive to think and grow rich beyond money. He understood now that richness was not only measured in currency, it was measured in impact, in purpose, in the fear he had faced and overcome. He thought of the grandmother who cried when she finally understood her medicine instructions. He thought of the volunteer recording her voice so someone in a distant town could understand directions for a new vaccine. He felt a warm glow, a quiet joy that no bank account could compare with. One morning, Ali received a message from a young woman named Zara. She was a journalism student in a remote province, writing an article on technology for social good. She asked him to speak at her class. The class had 10 students. He smiled at the thought. He packed his laptop, took a bus to her town, and spoke to a small classroom filled with eager faces. He shared his journey, encouraged them to think beyond the fear of failure, to imagine success fully, to serve real people. He told them that each of them carried a notebook in their mind where ideas waited to be written. He said, "The world needs your thoughts. When you think with purpose, riches follow. Riches of the heart, the mind, and yes, even money." As he walked back to the bus station, he felt that same familiar spark flicker in his chest, the spark of possibility. New faces emerged. New problems waited for solutions. He thought, "My journey has taught me that thinking and growing rich is a lifetime adventure. It never ends. Every day presents a challenge and an opportunity to think bigger, to push harder, to serve more." He took a deep breath of fresh air. He felt gratitude for the road that led him from a small room with a simple desk lamp to this moment. He felt gratitude for the power of thought and the strength of action. Perhaps that is the true meaning of thinking and growing rich in modern life. It is the courage to believe in your own value, the humility to learn from failures, the compassion to serve others, and the persistence to keep imagining success until it becomes reality. If you can hold that belief in your mind each morning, write it down in simple words, imagine it as a living feeling in your chest, and then take one small action, no matter how imperfect, you begin to grow rich, not only with money, but with the confidence that money follows clear purpose, not only with wealth, but with friendships, respect, and the quiet joy of knowing that each code you write, each conversation you have, builds something that improves someone's life. That, Ali realized, was the most attractive, the most powerful wealth of all.